Stream, please. Hi everyone, and welcome to this hybrid meeting of the Family, Education and Justice Committee. I would remind all attendees that this meeting is being recorded and webcast live on the Council's YouTube channel. I have agreed the attendance of some members remotely and would remind all remote attendees to mute their microphones when not speaking. For any members of the public watching, please note that all the public committee reports, including details of specific recommendations, are available on the Council's website. Do we have any apologies or substitutions?
Thank you, Convener. We have apologies from Councillor Proctor, Councillor Melville and Councillor Bell, with Councillor Fotheringham, Councillor Braid and Councillor Clark substituting. Also have apologies from Mr Callahan and Mrs Cheen, who are teacher representatives.
Thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest or statements of transparency? No. Submit for approval as a correct record the minutes of the committee held on the 25th of March 2025. Is that agreed? Agreed. And submit for noting the minute of the staffing subcommittee of the 25th of March 2025. Is that agreed? Thank you. So the first item on the agenda is item number 4 is the appointments of subcommittees and other groups of the Family, Education and Justice Committee. So Sarah Forsyth is going to introduce this report.
Thank you, Convener. Following the special meetings of Angus Council on 22nd April and 8th May and the change in membership of this committee, there is now a requirement to make appointments to a number of standing subcommittees and groups. The report asks committee to appoint members to those subcommittees as detailed in, I think it's recommendation 3, and to the Children's Services Group. You're also asked to note the remit and to appoint conveners and vice conveners. Thank you.
Do we have any questions or any comments? So we're going to run through each of the did the committee agree to note recommendations 1 and 2? Agreed. And so we're going to run through each of the committees separately. So the first one is the School Attendance Subcommittee. So I was going to propose myself and Councillor Proctor for that one, and I need a seconder for that one. Councillor Gregg. And the next one is the Staffing Subcommittee. Again, I was going to propose myself and Councillor Proctor for that one. I need a seconder for that one. Councillor Scott. And then we need, an additional member.
Could I propose Councillor Devine?
Seconded. Brilliant. So the next one is the Special Appeals Subcommittee. Again, I was going to propose myself and Councillor Proctor for that one, and also Councillor Gregg. And second, Councillor Scott, second.
Could I propose Councillor Devine and Councillor Whiteside?
Is there anyone else for that one? Nope. So the last one in this section is the Executive Subcommittee. This one's 3 elected members. So again, I was proposing myself and Councillor Proctor, so I need a seconder for that one. Councillor Nicholl, thank you. And one more.
Councillor Devine again.
Councillor Scott to second that one. So we need to appoint conveners and vice conveners for all of them. So do you want me to go through one by one? So for the School Attendance Subcommittee, I was going to appoint myself as convener and Councillor Proctor as vice convener. Wait a second, Councillor Gregg. For the Staffing Subcommittee, I was going to appoint myself as convener and Councillor Proctor as vice convener. Councillor Scott has seconded it. And the Special Appeals Subcommittee, I was going to appoint myself as convener and Councillor Proctor as, thank you, Councillor Devine seconded, thank you. And Executive Subcommittee, I was going to do the same again for that one. Thank you, Councillor Scott. So the last one is to appoint one non-administration elected member for the Angus Integrated Children's Services Group. So, taking.
I propose Councillor Devine.
Okay. Councillor Speed.
Yeah, can I propose myself, please?
So is that Councillor Nicholl to second?
I think we need political balance here, convener. I mean, my nominee is representing a group of 12. I think there should be political balance here. And if it's 2 from the administration, it'd be 1 from the main opposition group.
I understand from this one, is it my decision or is it a vote that we need to go to?
No, we need to go to a vote unless...
I don't think we can accept that, to be quite honest with you. I mean, is Councillor Speed a member of the administration or not?
No.
So she's declaring herself as non-aligned, but on the 2 votes on the 22nd of April and 8th of May, she voted exclusively with the administration. So I fail to see how we can see her as a...
Point of order, convener, that's irrelevant to this business.
I don't think it is irrelevant. You know, who is representing the main opposition group? Somebody who voted the administration in. That seems to me quite unacceptable to me.
I think from where we are at the minute, Councillor Speed is a non-aligned, and this position is for someone who is not a member of the administration. So on that basis, I think we need to go for a vote on this one, and if there's 2 people who are interested in this position.
Can I just say I think that's unacceptable, to be quite frank with you. And I've raised this issue with senior officers, that this was not done very well at the meeting on the 8th. That clearly we should have political balance on these committees. That's a fundamental principle, and this goes against it.
I think, did Mrs Forsyth want to come in?
Yes, thank you, convener. Just to advise members that the terms of reference were actually agreed by the Angus Integration Children's Services Group themselves. That is not a matter for council to determine. That has been determined by the group themselves, who have said that it would be 1 non-administration member. So that isn't on the basis of political balance, and therefore we do require to go to a vote.
Councillor Duff, can I just check who seconded your proposal, please?
Councillor Clark. Councillor Clark.
Chair, can I just ask a point of clarity, really, I suppose, in some respects. I've listened to what Leonard Clark, an officer there with a lot of experience. I do think, with my personal experience from elsewhere as well, I think you're going to have a bit of an impasse here. So I'm not quite sure that, yes, standing orders, and yes, it was a position at the time of a group. Now, I have got no skin in the game, as people say. I just don't. I just think for clarity and not to cause an impasse, I don't think you should be going down this road this way at this time. Do I maybe make myself clear? Well, I suppose if I'm required to bring an amendment, then I would do that. I don't know whether I'd be allowed to, because I don't think at this stage in the game we're creating an impasse here, and I don't think it's healthy. That may not be a reason that's acceptable. That's just my feeling.
So I think because it needs to be agreed by the Angus Integrated Children's Services Group, that is something that we'd have to go back to them with, and not something that we could agree on today within council if we've got 2 members who are interested in putting themselves forward for that.
If I could come back, my only thought here is for the good of this council. That's my thought, only. And that's why I'm raising this and see it as an impasse. I'll accept what you're saying, but I think I would have to say that.
Point of clarification from myself as well. Could this not be deferred until the next education, so that we can maybe all discuss this? So this is not in the public glare of everyone else. Is that possible?
Thank you. So, as the terms of reference stand at the moment for Integrated Children's Services Group, it states it's the convener and the vice-convener and a non-administration member of this committee. And I think, as has been clearly explained, Councillor Speed is non-aligned. She's not a part of the administration. There is nothing in the terms of reference about political balance. I would have to take advice on whether we defer this and then ask for the terms of reference to be changed. I'm unsure of the governance of that.
Convener, there's an important democratic point that the convener and vice-convener represent the 13 members of the administration. Councillor Devine would represent 12 members of the opposition. Councillor Speed is only representing herself. I think there's an important democratic point here.
I think it's clear, though, that this decision does not sit with me. If 2 members are interested in putting themselves forward to this, then that the decision-making process for us within this is to go to a vote. Otherwise, we have to take it away, speak to the Integrated Children's Board about acceptance of that. From my understanding, that's where we are.
Councillor Duff, thanks for your comments, but I would just like to clarify that whoever becomes a member of the board is there to represent the children and young people of Angus. They're not there to represent any group. Thanks.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, I think on that basis, I think what we need to do is go to the vote on this one to conclude it, to move forward.
Thank you, Convener. Councillor Duff, seconded by Councillor Clark. Proposed Councillor Devine for the Integrated Children's Services Group. Councillor Speed, seconded by Councillor Louise Nicholl, proposed herself to be appointed to the Children's Services Group. Please vote Councillor Devine or Councillor Speed. Convener?
Councillor Speed.
Councillor Fotheringham?
Councillor Speed.
Councillor Braze?
Councillor Devine.
Councillor Beattie?
Councillor Devine.
Councillor Boyd?
Councillor Devine.
Councillor Cruikshanks?
Councillor Speed.
Councillor Devine?
Councillor Devine.
Councillor Duff?
Councillor Devine.
Councillor Gall?
Councillor Speed.
Councillor Gregg?
Councillor Speed.
Councillor Clark?
Councillor Speed. Councillor Devine, sorry. Councillor Devine.
Councillor Louise Nicholl?
Councillor Speed.
Councillor Scott?
Councillor Speed.
Councillor Speed?
Councillor Speed.
Councillor Whiteside?
Councillor Devine.
Mrs Hay? Mrs Hay?
Councillor Speed.
Canon Tom Shields? Is that a no vote? Sorry, could you just confirm no vote?
Yes, no vote.
There is 6 votes for Councillor Devine and 10 votes for Councillor Speed. Therefore, Councillor Speed is elected to the Angus Integration Children's Services Group.
Okay, I think maybe we take a break just for 5 minutes, just after that, and we'll reconvene in 5 minutes.
Can we start the live stream, please?
Okay, just one update before we get back to the agenda.
Thank you, Convener. Just to clarify, and apologies for my error earlier, there was in the previous vote 7 votes for Councillor Devine and 9 votes for Councillor Speed, with 1 no vote, and therefore Councillor Speed was nominated to the group. Thank you.
Okay, so we're on to agenda item number 5, which is Angus Youth Engagement and Participation Guidance. Audrey Meaky is going to introduce this report, and I believe we're going to start with a short video for this one.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just introduce the video. So I'm pleased to say that we have some young members of the Youth Steering Group present that have reviewed and refreshed the youth engagement guidance. Not all could be here today, so they've been quite creative and have came up with a very short video introducing the paper and the guidance that I will play in a minute. We've been notified of a couple of small errors within the guidance that will be amended for the final copy. It's the draft that's visible on the papers for you today. I will share the video and then open to questions. We've got Ruben Whammond here in person today, and we've got Marcus Flucker online dialing in from UK Parliament, and both can answer any questions, along with Sylvia Breen, who has been supporting the project.
In 2018, as part of the Year of Young People, Community Planning Partners co-produced the Angus Youth Engagement Strategy with young people in Angus. In 2024, the UNCRC was incorporated into Scots law, which places a duty on local authorities to meaningfully engage with young people, so we felt it was time to review the strategy. The review included us, the steering group, and 46 other young people who are often seldom heard, such as ASN young people, LGBTQ, ethnic minorities, refugees, unaccompanied young people, care experience, and young carers. The strategy is now guidance as it sits under Angus Council's Community Engagement and Consultation Policy. The guidance consists of 10 core principles that young people identified as being important when services are developing project plans and policies.
These principles are to co-produce the engagement activities by working in partnership with young people, guarantee our involvement is voluntary and that the topic is relevant to all those involved, providing safe spaces at suitable times in agreement with young people, help us understand the purpose of the engagement, what we can influence, and help us shape our views, ensure that the engagement is inclusive and remove barriers for all young people who want to take part, respectfully and actively listen to young people to ensure that their opinions are always valued, safeguard them and only share their views when consent is given, communicate effectively using child-friendly language, appropriate social media and digital platforms, or any other methods which could work, keep young people informed throughout the engagement, providing feedback of the outcome of their engagement, and evaluate the impact of the engagement.
We have produced resources to support services to embed the guidance, including a checklist for services, a feedback form for young people, and an evaluation form to help the services reflect on their engagement activity. These resources align to the principles within the guidance. A youth charter was developed and can be used as a checklist for young people when services engage in decision making. A video is also being developed to help young people understand the principles. As part of our next steps, we are currently developing a Youth Champions Network for Angus. This will support services to implement the guidance. The network, along with staff, will provide advice and training services when they are developing their engagement plans.
Thank you, and I'll just open it up for questions.
Thank you very much, and it's great to see the video and great to have you here with us or online as well. At this point, I'm actually going to make a short statement of transparency because I didn't know who was going to be appearing today. But I've met some of the people involved in the video through other settings in Angus as well, so I'm just going to mention that. Do we have any questions? Councillor Devine.
Thanks, Convener. I think this is great. I think the principles are super, and it's great to bring it all into one place. Obviously, the next steps will be how to engage, and in which kind of way will that be face-to-face? Or, I mean, you've got a lot of ideas. I was wondering if you have used or made use at all of voice, because I think that's being used by community councils. Have young people had an opportunity to see that, and is that an appropriate way of dealing with it? I'll just leave it.
So we've engaged with young people through focus groups, and when it comes to using the strategy, services can use either focus groups, they can use online platforms where that is appropriate for the age group that they're consulting and engaging with for using the guidance. So that can include some of the social media platforms that have been mentioned, to include promoting the strategy. So young people have told us they liked platforms like Facebook, which parents shared posts that was on there. Instagram was another popular one. So there are online platforms that can be used in regards to engaging with young people.
Marcus, did you want to come in?
Yes, thank you, convener. And just take this opportunity to say thank you to yourself and officers for agreeing my attendance online. Unfortunately, I find myself in London this week for work commitments. Just further to what Ruben said in response to Councillor Devine, I think one of the bits in the guidance that is helpful is, of course, there's those lists in there of ways that young people could be engaged with, but actually, voice could be one of those, although it's not listed on that document. Actually, what we would recommend is that when services are engaging with young people, is they take some time to understand how young people would like to be engaged with, and that could involve any method or format which the young people who they're consulting with find to be helpful.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, convener. Over and above what's in the recommendations to endorse this, which I'm sure we will all do, what can we as elected members, or we as a committee, or indeed we as a council do to make this better and to make this work? And what more assistance can we offer to promote this?
So we, as mentioned in the video, we were planning on setting up a Youth Champions Network. So a way that the committee and elected councillors can support that is through promotion and raising awareness. It could also involve ensuring that young people are aware of it, so that young people who want to get involved can, and they know how they can get involved, as young people can help services implement the guidance included within the document.
And Marcus, did you want to come back in on that one?
Yes, thank you, convener. So yes, also to add to that point, I think something that would be really helpful is when our Youth Champions Network is established and we're working with more young people, it would be great to engage with members at that point. But the best thing that really can be done at the moment is help us implement the guidance by asking about it, mentioning it to partners whenever you get the opportunity to.
I think we've got another question from Councillor Clark.
Thanks very much, and great to see you guys. I'm just thinking in terms of equality right across the board. As an ex-youth worker myself, I'm just wondering, when you're trying to engage with young people who reflect society the same as the rest of us, who may not be able just to understand properly in the way that you would understand, because that's not how they think. I hope I'm explaining myself properly. I know what labelling people. Would you, and have you maybe considered having a mentor and a buddies programme within that, so that you would be able to get across to some young people who maybe don't use the same kind of language and the same kind of ability to voice themselves? I hope I'm expressing myself well enough.
So yeah, you are expressing yourself well, and you make a good point. What I would say is that that is a point we would consider.
But with the strategy that we've got right now, we made sure that the document is in youth-friendly voice. We've got a youth charter that is for young people to help them understand the principles of the document. The main document could be used by services, and there is also other resources that are available, including a young person's evaluation form, so they can evaluate the engagement, so that services can understand what went well and what went not so good, so they can work on that. And on the point as well, we've made sure that we engaged with a wide groups of young people to make sure that seldom heard voices are heard throughout the engagement.
If I could come back, please, Chair. Well, I'd just like to commend you on that answer and that engagement we made for a start, because that's important as well, because I represent somebody very much older, and I am absolutely thrilled to hear you today. You couldn't have put that better. It's in such safe hands, and that's heartfelt.
Thank you. I think at this point, are we moving? Oh, Marcus, you have a hand up to answer as well?
Just very quickly, it was just to add that one of our principles, one of the 10 principles, is provide safe spaces at suitable times in agreement with young people. So not just like what Ruben said, this has ran through the guidance from the very beginning in terms of our own design and our consultation on it, looking at the refresh, but actually it found itself as part of the 10 principles and the output that young people in Angus told us. And thank you very much to Councillor Clark for her kind words.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any comments on? No comments? Okay, so I think our job today is to endorse the Angus Youth Engagement and Participation Guidance, and also agree to support Angus Council services and community planning partners to strengthen youth engagement in line with the newly developed Youth Engagement Guidance. Is that agreed? Agreed. And thank you very much. So agenda item number 6 is the HMIE thematic inspection of local authority approaches to schools improvement, and Neil Loudon is going to introduce this report.
Yeah, thank you, Convener. Good afternoon, everyone. Agenda item 6 asks members to consider the HMIE thematic inspection of local authority approaches to school improvement. The inspection focused on how local authorities support schools in improving the quality of education through effective improvement planning, self-evaluation, quality assurance and professional learning. Convener, the national report detailed in Appendix 1 and published in March 2025 provides a helpful overview of the national approaches to strengthening systems improvement. Appendix 2 highlights the strengths and areas for improvement identified during our bespoke visit, with a particular focus on the good practice of Angus Council's approaches in improving the work of our schools. And Appendix 3 gives members a detailed outline of Angus Council's framework for improvement, which ensures appropriate levels of support and challenge for all our schools. I am joined today by colleagues from across education and lifelong learning. We'll be happy to take any questions that members may have.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions? No. Oh, yeah, Councillor Devine.
Yeah, it's a very small question, really, but on page 90, I think in several other places, no, in 90, reference is made to AAs, and this is maybe an acronym that we don't know. I have asked Neil about this, and I know that it is associated assessors, but I'm sure a lot of people don't actually know what that means. So maybe you could give us an idea of that, please, Neil. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Devine. We do have a number of associate assessors in Angus Council who work directly with the inspectorate. So actually we have Sheena Locke, who works directly with early learning childcare quality assurance for HMI. Lorraine Will and Leila Martin are both associate assessors in primary, and we have one of our head teachers across our secondary schools who support it. So associate assessors will go out build good practice nationally and bring practice back that will strengthen systems improvements in Angus. So on average, our associate assessors go out on 2 or 3 visits per year to local authorities all across Scotland and it is a scrutiny job, but to scrutinise practice, but more importantly for Angus Council to come back and share good practice that they've learned from their visit to help strengthen our systems improvement in Angus. So it's a role that we are very, very happy to support, and actually very proud that we can support it across early years, primary and secondary. Thank you, Councillor Devine.
Thank you. We got any other questions? Oh, Councillor Speed.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Mr Loudon. We know the importance of joining up, working together, working collaboratively to improve the lives of young people, and some of our young people need that joined up approach, you know, in quite significant ways because of their needs. I just wondered if you could explain in terms of individual education plans and coordinated support plans where Angus is with regards to, you know, those supports that are often need to be put in place to ensure improvement.
Thank you, Councillor Speed. I'm going to hand that across to Audrey Osborne, our Service Leader for Additional Support Needs.
Thank you, Councillor Speed, for your question. Yeah, we have individual education plans, guidance and training that goes out for all staff, and those are monitored and reviewed by our schools on a regular basis in consultation with parents and with children and young people. And we have a coordinated support plan multi-agency panel. So when coordinated support plans are required, then they are submitted to the multi-agency panel for a decision about that, and there's strict criteria to be met if a coordinated support plan is required. So we have processes in place for both of those planning tools.
And you know, it's well documented locally and nationally that you know the challenges and the difficulty that there can be within the classroom setting because of the increase in demands and challenges in terms of resources. So I just wonder, in practice, is it quite difficult in terms of managing to properly implement and follow through on those plans that do take a multi-agency
I think our approach is one of looking at a staged intervention. So we have our continuum of need, and it's really about enhancing our provision at a universal level by skilling up our classroom teachers so that they can deliver to meet a wide range of additional support needs that are in all of our classrooms. And I think we do that by putting things in place that will be of benefit to, yes, specific children, but in my experience, those things that are in place for individual children will benefit a wide range of children in the classroom. And within our Angus education plan, we are supporting the Circle framework, which I've talked about here in committee before, and that's about promoting inclusion so that everyone takes responsibility for the participation of children with additional support needs in their learning in their mainstream classrooms. For those that require, you know, specific additional support, then that planning is done through those tools that I've just mentioned.
Okay. Thank you. If we've no further questions, Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you. I suppose sometimes you don't always see a question or hear a question until somebody else brings up a theme. And just on the back of Councillor Speed's thoughts, well, I think I know where our thoughts were going. And just my own experience, which is a voluntary sector background. And when I worked with Home Start, for instance, I'm just asking in terms of how much, considering we are strapped and we are trying to get so much done, there's so much that's happening that we can't honestly do everything, and we're trying however hard we try. Is there a way that we can use the voluntary sector at all? Is there a chance at all that you could maybe involve people to help you with things? I mean, not just in the classroom, but the kind of things we're asking here are so necessary. And I'm not suggesting for a minute that we're not doing everything, because we are. But let's be honest, we're not going to be able to cope with everything. Is there a chance that we can actually use our colleagues in the third sectors?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Clark. The third sector, voluntary sector, as we refer to it sometimes, is absolutely vital to support all our children and young people. You know, and I know Kirsty would support that as well. But for me, when you look across all schools, they're inspected on, and we're touching on that. how they develop partnerships in their local community. And that's essential at local level. And we'll have lots of different communities across Angus. But I think one thing I take pride in is the response we get through the Inspectorate of how we are strengthening those relationships, whether it's in the early years, whether it's through primary, whether it needs to be in the individual education plan of a young person, or whether it's about that career readiness that we were speaking about previously, about how we, in that senior phase, ready young people for work and build those relationships. We were talking about the Montrose Port, for example, at the last committee. But all that's really, really important, and the third voluntary sector plays a vital role in that. And we would look to support, strengthen that wherever we possibly could. So it's a very valid and good point.
I'm really pleased to hear that. Thank you.
Okay. I think then we'll move on to comments. Has anyone got any comments they wish to make on this report? Councillor Devine.
Thank you. I just want to make a very short comment about our Angus Virtual School team, because it is a very small team in comparison to other places. It is minute, and Leila, along at the end there, leads that very well indeed. And they are responsible for a huge amount of work and supporting head teachers, staff through schools to improve their practice and to share that good practice that you were talking about earlier with the AAs. That is so important, that everybody gets an idea of what other people are doing, how they can do it better. And I think there is a general awareness, a general desire to learn from that and to implement it for the good of our children. Thank you.
Thank you. I think if that's all the comments, so the recommendations. Oh, sorry, there is one. Councillor Speed.
Thank you. Yeah, just really to say that I think whether you're a young person, or a single parent, carer, or family, whether you're a school staff member, whatever part you play, I think we can all recognise that we do live in quite difficult times, and I think we all just need to do our bit. We all have a role to play in all of this, and in the improvements that we all hope to see being made within Angus. So yeah, I certainly will be doing my utmost to support going forward.
Thank you. So the recommendations for us to consider the National Thematic Inspection and consider the summary report on the Angus Council Thematic Inspection. So that agreed? Thank you. So agenda item number 7, which is an interim performance update. And again, Neil Loudon is going to introduce this report.
Thank you again, Convener. Agenda item 7 asks members to consider the interim performance update of the Education and Lifelong Learning Directorate. It highlights key achievements, ongoing initiatives and areas for improvement within the Directorate. And members should note the key progress made across Appendix 1, 2 and 3. Convener, we will continue to have a focus on learning, teaching and assessment in our Angus Education Plan for next session, and explicitly state our intention to continue to raise attainment for all our children and young people. We will continue to prioritise the senior phase whilst reviewing the S1 to S3 curriculum, building on our good work, our very good work in terms of P7 to S1. Convener, I do think it's important context, particularly in relation to our stretch aims, that comparing 2024 cohorts with 2023 cohorts can be challenging. A drop in year-on-year performance for school leavers was not completely unexpected, and we have ensured a renewed focus of support and challenge through our framework for improvement. That framework for improvement, of course, was recognised as good practice in our previous committee report. Finally, Convener, members are asked to request that an attainment report is provided for 24-25 once the relevant data has been published. I'd be happy to take any questions on the report, Convener. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Councillor Scott.
Thanks, Convener. Could I just ask Mr Loudon, why is the attainment of children with additional support needs not reported separately?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Scott. Again, Audrey, would you come in on that one?
Thank you, Councillor Scott, for your question. I think information currently available on outcomes for pupils receiving additional support for learning nationally is quite limited. I think that's partly due to the inconsistent recording of additional support needs nationally. It's such a wide definition, so we can be talking about a learner who has a barrier due to having dyslexia to a learner with multiple and complex needs. So we're not comparing like with like, and that ranges across Scotland. ASN is not included in the National Improvement Framework, so it has been recognised nationally that more appropriate ways of measuring the achievement of pupils with additional support needs is required. And to that end, through the National ASL Action Plan on the back of the Morgan Review, there is work ongoing with Scottish Government, ADES and local authorities, and I'm involved in that myself, to help develop a national measurement framework that will better demonstrate outcomes for learners with additional support needs. And reference was made to that in the recent ASL audit report. The audit report also mentioned that in the longer term, what it would like to see is the national measurement framework that's in development being used to publish clear and transparent annual reports on outcomes for pupils who receive additional support for learning. And of course, Angus would be happy to be involved in delivering on that too.
Thank you. Is there any further questions? Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Convener. I know that some of the senior phase results are disappointing. Can you give us any indication of what our predictions would be for the school session? I know the year results are a little out of sync, but if you could give us a bit more information, please.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Gregg. Some of the senior phase results are not where we would want them to be. And I think, again, we'd go back and touch on the framework for improvement and the refinement of the framework for improvement that was endorsed during our thematic inspection visit, and the work that Councillor Devine has praised Leila's team for. We have taken a slightly different approach. Kelly and I went out in term 1 this year and met with all schools to talk about senior phase results. Progress and learning meetings where you're talking about individual young people, because every individual young person matters, are taking place term by term, and they're not just taking place at school level now, they're taking place at faculty level. So whether it's language and communication, maths and numeracy, etc., these meetings are taking place at faculty level, and we're supporting our middle leaders to support our class teachers to deliver the best possible outcomes for young people. We held a leadership conference at the end of the last calendar year to pull together our collective Angus improvement support of our senior leaders, of our middle leaders, and how we collectively work together, and we've been supported well by members, and I would say that, to get the best possible outcomes for our children and young people. So the results do give me confidence. We're using pupil tracking more robustly, and the latest set of results do give me some confidence, but I would caveat that by saying, of course, our children and young people have just sat their examinations, so it's difficult because it feels like turning a tanker sometimes rather than getting into a speedboat. So I would want to provide some reassurance that we are robustly tracking and monitoring with some levels of confidence that next year's report will be more positive. But again, we're still caveating that with examinations that have still to be assessed. Thank you, though, Councillor Gregg.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Once again, I'm a bit with tail end Charlie, Neil. But really, what I'm sitting here thinking, because we've had a pandemic, and because it seems to be affecting us in all sorts of ways, it has to be affecting our youngsters. I've got a granddaughter in Calgary, a very clever girl, who has just honestly done so badly. No matter what a loving family does, you cannot change that. You cannot just turn it around, because there's a lot of kids no believing in themselves. So I suppose it's been said many times, but I'll say it again. I'm just wondering, I guess, how much effect that has on these parents. And again, how long it's going to take us to recover. Because you're just listening to all the sorts of things that happened with elderly people in care homes in all sorts of ways, carers and everything. So it's got to be affecting our young people.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Never describe you as a tail end, Charlie, but I would say that the framework, there's the national document for the framework for recovery and accelerated progress, and that should sit central, and it's still a really important document because it is still about elements of recovery and accelerating progress. Now, I would say 2, 3, 4 years ago it was 80% recovery, 20% accelerating progress. Perhaps that's flipped now, and we're still recovering for 20%, and that's where the important discussions at school level about individual children and young people really matter, particularly for that, match for 100%, but particularly for that 20%, where I think you're right, there is a lag in terms of recovery of how we support our young people. And for the other 80%, it's about how we accelerate progress to make sure that Angus is, we feel like, chasing our VC, but reaching our VC and beyond our virtual comparator. And that to me is a position that I would be comfortable in. I know it would be a position that Kelly would be comfortable in, and hopefully we can get there in certain key measures when we bring the report back next year. But I'm not entirely promising. We'll have to just add that in, sorry.
Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any comments? Councillor Whiteside.
Thanks, Convener. It's just to thank Mr Loudon and his team for the very useful briefing that he gave for elected members prior to the meeting today. It was really useful, so thanks for that.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you. Okay, so our we need to consider the recommendation. So we have to consider the information, acknowledge the achievements of our children and young people, and the support provided by parents, staff, and partners, and request that an attainment report is provided for 24-25 once the relevant data has been published. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Agenda item 8 is the admissions policy proposal paper, and again it's Neil Loudon who's going to introduce this.
Final one for me today, Convener, thank you. Agenda item 8 asks members to approve the proposal papers outlined in Appendix 1 and 2. These are in relation to our admissions policy. To make our processes more efficient and effective, we have refined our priority scheme for placing requests in order to ensure we best support all our children and young people in Angus, but particularly those with additional support needs. I feel the proposed changes to the current policy will ensure our documentation to support decision making will be robust. Members are asked to delegate authority to the Acting Director of Education and Lifelong Learning to undertake a statutory consultation on the proposal to vary our admission arrangements. Convener, members are also requested that a report on the results of this consultation be brought back to the Family, Education and Justice Committee at a future meeting, and we're really hoping to aim for the November cycle so we can implement if members approve in January. And members should be advised of a slight error in the papers. A Hawkeye has picked that up, and the public meeting scheduled for next week. The meeting is scheduled to take place on Wednesday the 18th of June rather than the Thursday, but the version for publication has already been amended by the very efficient Beth Reader. Thank you, Convener. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Can I just ask you to clarify why it's important for us to have this back in November?
So, if it comes back in November, we can refine our policies in line with our admissions for 26-27, whereas if it's beyond that, we would be in the current admission papers as they stand. So the consultation is quite a tight time period, so we can come back to members, allow it to be rightly scrutinised with questions asked, and then a final refinement before we go in, or it can be accepted, and therefore we can make decisions slightly earlier to support particularly those with additional support needs, but equally a slight amendment to our prioritisation of our placement requests also. Thank you, Convener.
Do you have any questions on this? Councillor Nicholl?
Thanks, Convener. The proposed admissions categories prioritise children in Angus, and I was wondering if you can tell us a bit more about why it's been proposed when you look at the equality impact assessment, where it says that those outside Angus could be negatively impacted. Thanks.
Is Beth okay to answer that one, Convener?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. The reason the proposed categories are framed this way is because our statutory duty to provide education under the Education Act is for children living within the area of Angus. So the proposed categories are framed around that. So that is the reason for the distinction.
Councillor Clark?
Sorry, once again, this is a really good meeting for me. Maybe not for everybody else. But just as somebody who's a completely new person to the appeals process, I'm not going to go into that, but there's two people sitting there that watched me go through it the other day when I was on it with all the experts. And you go into these things, and I'm just sitting here looking and reading again what you've written here at your background. And sometimes it takes a second reading. Because I sat in there with all my experience, which is quite vast in a career, bringing it all in, thinking, I've got all the answers. You didn't hear all the answers. When you go in and you see what has to be done, the areas you have to keep within, the parameters you have to keep in for equality and fairness, I didn't have all the answers. Halfway through it, I started to get the answers. And maybe by the time I came out of it, I didn't make quite so much of a fool of myself. But it was a great experience, and I commend you. So I can only say, once again, that was really great for me. And if my opinion's anything to go by, we're on the right track.
Was that a question or a comment? Sneaking in. Do you have any other questions? You got a question?
Just a clarification, this policy doesn't look at the rules for admission to nurseries, does it? That's completely separate, yeah. I thought that, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Just to clarify that is the case. I'll just look across at Sheena just to confirm that. But yes, no changes to ELC. Glad I got that right, Sheena. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Gregg and then Councillor Speed.
Thank you, Convener. I'm not sure whether this question is for Neil or for Beth, but I was wondering if you could give us a bit more information about how the stakeholders have been identified for the consultation, please.
I'm happy to take that. Thank you for the question. So the relevant consultees, to use the official language, are set out in the Schools Consultation Act. So we have identified all of those stakeholders. So that's parents and carers, children and young people, staff within our schools. But we've also made the decision to consult more widely than that, so involving the Community Planning Partnership and other education authorities. And the main idea is so that we consult as widely as possible. And I think to reflect back on the presentation we had right at the start, youth engagement principles. Sylvia, who was sitting with Ruben, is part of my team part of the week. So we will be engaging with children and young people as part of that, adhering to those core principles. So we've aligned with the Act, but gone beyond that as well to ensure wide representation.
And Councillor Speed?
Thank you. Yeah, we know that, people's lives, families' lives, school life can be really quite complex, and it doesn't always fit into a policy. We know that often families don't necessarily have the choice around where they stay. We know that there's a housing crisis. They don't always have the choice around what school their young person attends. And sometimes that has a knock-on impact in terms of transport. I guess what I'm getting to with this would be my question around whether really the Appendix A and the kind of the priorities, the entitlement and then the priorities kind of reflect this enough. Although within the body of the report there is reference to additional support needs, there isn't actually specific reference within the Appendix A and the priorities. And I just wondered if that could be better considered. And very quickly, a second little kind of point around engagement. Given that we have just had, our youth engagement strategy and, a fantastic presentation from young people, is this engagement kind of wide enough? And is this an opportunity to really hear from young people themselves on a policy that perhaps in the past it's not something that you would think that young people might want to, necessarily input into, but 2 engagement sessions across the whole of Angus, is that enough? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Speed. I'll maybe just let Beth cover both those points. I'll maybe come in on the back of that, Convener, if that's okay.
Thank you, Councillor Speed. So in response to the first question you raised, we've identified, or we've proposed a new priority category 1, which is where the Director of Education and Lifelong Learning considers that the particular needs of the child or young person would only be met by attendance at the school. We've been deliberate in the wording of that to not explicitly or to not restrict that to children with additional support needs, but reflecting that there may be other circumstances that might be leading to why a placing request is being made. There may be care experience, there could be other factors in the home. So that was our proposal, and we don't have that flexibility in our policy at the moment. We just have the two priority categories as set out. And then in terms of the second point, so we are actually only required to have one public meeting, but the public meeting, we have 2 of them scheduled, but they are only one part of the consultation. So we'll be going live through the Angus Engage portal. We will be writing to all parents and carers, but also asking schools to share information with children and young people as well, to encourage them to participate. We found that has been quite effective in supporting other bits of work that have been taken forward. So, for example, the participatory budgetary engagement in advance of budget setting this year, we shared information with schools and we had a stronger response rate than we'd had before. So that is only one part of it, and we will be encouraging people to take part wherever they can. And we would encourage members, if you'd like to publicise it as well, please do.
Yeah, thank you. And convener, just to follow up to the first part, if that's okay.
I think you've had 2.
Oh, did I have 2? Okay, no worries. I can pick that up after.
Thank you.
But yeah, it would be good to receive further clarity.
Thanks. I think we're going to move on to comments. Oh, sorry, online. So, Canon Tom Shields, did you have a question?
Thanks, convener. Just a quick question to Mr. Loudon there. Would the consultation welcome comments from the Catholic Church and other churches, given that we have 2 denominational schools, and as he knows himself well, we've had 1 or 2 problems with admissions, and would some comment be welcome by him?
Yeah, thank you, Canon Tom. We have tried to just capture very briefly, just at the top of page 211, in terms of the denominational schools placed within each priority category. But yes, we would welcome comment from yourself, Father Tom, around that, particularly in relation to St Thomas and St Margaret's. So much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So finally, does anyone have any comments that they wish to make? Councillor Speed.
I'll just switch my question to a comment, which would be that under Priority 1, where it does make reference to the Director of Education and Lifelong Learning, considering particular needs of a child or young person, and where that would only be met by the attendance of a particular school, I would also hope that then that would also reflect in terms of consideration around transport, because I think that's where sometimes the request and the transport part don't necessarily match up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Devine.
Yeah, I just want to say that I really appreciate the change in the the opportunity for enhanced transitions by taking earlier decisions on placements for children with additional support needs.
Yeah, thank you. It's very important, I think, to have the clarity within this process. It's a very stressful time for parents and children and carers and anyone who's looking to understand which school they might attend. So very important. So our recommendations are to approve the proposal papers, delegate authority to the Acting Director of Education and Lifelong Learning to undertake consultation on the proposal to vary admission arrangements in terms of the Schools Consultation Act, delegate authority to the Acting Director of Education and Lifelong Learning to investigate and manage any alleged omissions or inaccuracies during the consultation and take appropriate action in accordance with the Schools Consultation Scotland Act 2010, and request that the Acting Director of Education and Lifelong Learning prepares a report on the results of this consultation and reports the outcome to Family Education and Justice Committee at a future meeting. Is that agreed? Thank you. Thank you. We're just doing some changing seats, so I'll wait to start until everyone's sat down. So the next agenda item is number 9, Children at Risk of Harm, the Joint Inspection of Service, and Kirsty Lee is going to introduce the report today.
Okay, thank you. I very much welcome the opportunity to bring this joint inspection report on services to children at risk of harm in Angus to committee today. On behalf of the Angus Child Protection Committee, now known as Protecting People Angus Strategic Committee, this report reflects whole system responses to children at risk of harm and shows the strength of partnership work across Angus. Strong partnership working means that we have confidence that the culture, that the systems and the practice that surround children at risk are responsive, decisive and ultimately effective in protecting children. Since our last full integrated inspection in 2016, we have demonstrated clear improvements in how we engage and listen to children and young people. We've invested in advocacy, we've invested in the training and support to staff, and we've supported the development of initiatives such as Prepare, Care and Risk Management, Bairnshouse and Glen Clova, all which have been influenced by the voice of children. The change comes from a culture of working where staff and leaders appreciate that if we don't listen and do everything we can to hear and act on what our children and families tell us, our impact can only be limited. Strength-based practice, our approach to acknowledging risk, to naming risk and building on strengths and safety has really come through in this report. And so on behalf of our Protecting People Angus Strategic Committee, I welcome this report, the reflection it provides, the assurance to members and leaders of all partner agencies and the platform it gives us to continue to improve. However, as a senior officer of this council and chief social work officer, I want to draw attention to the key role our social workers, our teachers, our housing officers play in the protection of children. The difference we make that is reflected in this report is a credit to the skill and commitment of our whole multi-agency workforce and our workforce across the council. I'd like to quote from page 239 of the combined papers. Effective collaboration was underpinned by an impressive culture of trust, openness and learning at all levels. Staff were encouraged to be brave and empowered to be innovative, taking a lead where this was appropriate, knowing they would be supported by senior staff. There was a shared perspective that where things go wrong, there'll be an emphasis on learning from these events rather than blame. And this makes me immensely proud and very proud of our staff. And today I'd really like to extend thanks and recognition to the commitment of our workforce. Frontline social work staff are critical in the protection of children. We have a number of our staff here today who are round the back there and at the side, and I'm very pleased to share this report with you directly. As you practice in an often thankless profession, I encourage all of our staff and leaders to read this report and to reflect on the difference that you make. But this is a very difficult report to celebrate because any child who's experienced harm, no matter how the system responds to them, bears the cost of that harm, often throughout their whole lives. And I assure you we continue to prioritise not only the protection of children, but shifting our support and providing help at the earliest stage possible. A grading of 5, very good from this intense period of inspection, is well deserved. In terms of improvement, the report comments on the work already taking place to address the national issue of social work retention. I'll report in my next Chief Social Work Officer report on the efforts we are making to reduce staff turnover and the impact that we're having. The second improvement areas, pathways to support early help for mental health and wellbeing, will also be considered as part of the multi-agency response and will support us to continue to build on what I referenced earlier as our early intervention response. I'll draw attention to a minor amendment that we'd like to make in respect of item 3.3, I think, and that is that we are now aware that there is no requirement from the Care Inspectorate to submit the improvement plan. So I'd like to change the wording from requirement to intention. So we will absolutely pull together our improvement plan. Work is already well underway in that respect, and we will share it with partners in the Care Inspectorate, noting that we're not required to. I'll pause now and I'm happy to take questions. I welcome some colleagues who are here from our frontline services. We've got Lauren Stewart, who's a manager in Arbroath, and Rebecca McNeil, and also Siobhan McCarty. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Councillor Scott.
Thanks, Convener. Through yourselves, I don't know who will answer this. There's some fantastic things in here, Kirsty, so please don't think that I'm being negative in any way. But I noticed on page 15 a few children felt unable to attend meetings because the time was unsuitable, and also staff sometimes felt that the content of the meeting was potentially too challenging for children. So my question would be really, what efforts are being made to make participation easier? Thank you.
No, I don't take that as negative at all. I think it's a really clear reflection from children and young people, and that we continue to deliver services often in the way that suit adults. So I'm going to ask Rebecca McNeill to take that, because she's leading some of our improvement work in that respect. So Rebecca.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Scott. I think, yeah, we take on that comment, and it is difficult to ensure that we're meeting all children's needs to ensure that they can participate in their meetings. But I suppose it's looking at participation in the broader sense. So some children don't want to attend their meetings. So it's what else can we put in place to ensure that their voices are heard. So whilst we can look at all the practical arrangements, and we continue to do so, and look at timings of meetings, etc., and also make sure that the meetings, the content of the meetings, really do address the issues that are there, but in a meaningful way, and a way that is not too traumatising for children. There are other areas of work that we are undertaking to make sure that we've got voices heard and children are participating. So we obviously make use of our independent advocacy, who are key partners in our work. One of the areas that is always covered in child's planning meetings is to ensure that advocacy has been offered, not just once, but continues to be offered. We hence, which just now focus on just our child protection planning meetings, but the prepare meetings we would look to extend, so that allows children and their families to engage prior to the meetings, and have their voices heard at an earlier stage, and it informs how the meeting is conducted. Obviously there's a variety of different ways that we can continue to collect views, and we continue to do so, and we continue to seek children's feedback through our Hangout, for example, in terms of what they would like to see happen to their meetings.
Thank you. We got Councillor Clark.
And I am asking a question, I'm getting it right, sorry. On page 248, now I've read quite a lot about the Bairnshuis, etc. myself, and I would like to speak to our social work colleagues. And it's never a thankless task. I've worked with you in the past. You only think it is, but it's certainly no thankless. It's completely necessary. When we speak about the Bairnshuis as being a coordinated approach designed to reduce the number of times bairns and young people who are victims of witnesses to abuse or violence have made, etc., etc., the approach aims to make child protection, health, justice and recovery services available in one setting. I've been involved in this in my past. That's not an easy task to get all that. Can you tell me in a practical term how that's done? Because I think it's quite important.
You probably asked a question of one of the only managers we don't have here today, Councillor Clark, but that's okay. So I will.
Sorry.
No, you're
so
okay.
Sorry.
Lisa McMahon is our manager of the investigations service and leads that. But we have reported here before. So we have our Bairnshuis in Arbroath, and we've benefited from significant funding from the Scottish Government to develop the pilot approach to Bairnshuis. The 4 areas that you're talking about, so they're the 4 rooms in the house, is very difficult to provide all of those services, because thankfully we are talking about services for relatively small numbers of children who need really intense support. The room that we cannot provide and don't provide in Angus is the health-specific service in terms of medicals, and we've reported that here before. So medicals still happen centrally in Dundee. However, what we are doing in terms of Bairnshuis is ensuring that services that surround children and young people come to them in the Bairnshuis if they're comfortable with that, so where they can receive advice and guidance, counselling. The justice room, so if a young person's involved in offending and they require to be interviewed. The age of criminal responsibility, as you know, we are reviewing that in Scotland. There will likely be changes to that in the future. So the Bairnshuis will become more important for young people who are engaged in offending behaviour, and how they are interviewed by colleagues in the police, and how our multi-agency response helps them. So I think we've made very good progress in a fairly short period of time in establishing that model. However, we can't say that we offer all of our services in there. But I think we've made the best of a really challenging geographical Tayside-wide model. So hopefully that answers.
Well, Kirsty and convener, if that wasn't a fulsome answer, I've never heard it. Thank you.
Have we got any other questions? Councillor Speed and Councillor Gregg.
Yeah, thank you, convener. We know that relationships are really important to children and young people, and we know the benefits when you're able to do a good, proper, robust person or child-centred plan. But we also equally know that there is challenges within the system. So I just wondered, you know, how do we overcome those challenges so that staff that are supporting children and families on the ground are able to properly implement those plans? And what impact is the removal of the CAMHS service for those children and families who have possible neurodevelopment conditions? What impact is that having on this area of work? Thank you.
If we can take that in two distinct parts, because I'd like in terms of supporting the workforce. So the report reflects what we have, we're very acutely aware of and continue to be disappointed in, the impact that changes in relationships, key relationships, have on children and young people. So we know that social work recruitment and retention is a national issue. From my last Chief Social Work Officer report, you'll see there were 5 distinct sort of pillars of our workforce plan that we were focusing on. That has shown some good improvement. So we are seeing improvement in the retention. We've seen a reduction in our level of vacancies over the last 12 months. But it has a devastating impact on young people. So some of the things that we do in terms of the service are ensure there are no unnecessary passover points, if you like. We used to provide services in much smaller teams that had very distinct criteria. What that meant for a child is journeying through the system. It wasn't based on your relationship. You were passed from team to team based on the criteria that you met at the time. So we recognised that some time ago that is not child-centred, and our review in 2019 has addressed that. I think there are a number of things that our frontline staff are doing to support staff, and I'm going to ask Lauren to come in first just on some of the things you're doing in terms of supporting frontline social workers. And Rebecca, if you've got anything to follow up with workforce, and I'll come back to the CAMHS bit.
Obviously, we're committed to improving this level of support that we can to our workers, because in turn that has a direct impact on the service that is delivered. So particularly over the last few years, we have had a high number of newly qualified social workers join the team. So within that, we've really looked at how we ensure there's adequate support, advice and guidance for those newly qualified workers. So that looks at increased supervision levels. We have also increased the level of senior practitioners within the team to offer support. We have a mentoring programme involved with the newly qualified workers, and we've developing our group supervision, not just for social workers and also for our family support workers. We are committed to making caseloads manageable for workers. What we know from our exit interviews from staff that do leave, the areas for us to develop on is that people feeling there's a lack of proportionate across other service areas in terms of the level of pressure and responsibility on workers, and that's something that we do hear time and time again. We hope that by equally, however, what we know are Angus's strengths is a flexible approach to working, but also our positive learning environment, and that was obviously picked up in the inspection, and that's something that we're committed to continue to improving. Obviously, we want to look at continuing to increase the levels of support that we offer to our staff. We want to continue our commitment to internal and external training opportunities for staff to make sure they're supported, and also improving relationships with our close partner agencies, and gaining better understanding of each other's job roles as well.
Thank you.
suppose just to add, and Lauren's already mentioned, there's something about making sure that Angus is an attractive place to work in terms of recruitment and retention of staff. And as it was mentioned in the report, the learning culture that we've managed to kind of embed has been really, really important. And that translates all the way down to that relationship-based practice. So if staff are feeling well treated and cared for by leadership within the council, they're going to equally care for the clients and service users on their caseload. So it is that importance of moving from a blame culture, which could have translated into previously, a long time ago in social work, that kind of failure to protect kind of practice. And we're shifting away from that into a strengths-based approach and how we're working with families and relationship-based. So there is something to be said about the whole shift in culture over the past few years that has been possible with everyone involved.
Happy for me to address point 2. So I think the question was around the impact of some of the changes in CAMS that I think have been reported here in other committees. So what I'd like to start with is to ensure that we don't conflate the issues that are around with CAMS and the neurodevelopmental pathways and the challenges around that with the improvement action that's here. So the improvement action from this report is recognising that we should improve how we connect children and young people at the earliest stage with the best services to meet their needs. And so the improvement plan will be addressing that early help and support through to CAMS service. And we're just at the point now really of nailing down some of those actions and those improvements that will sit in the improvement plan. The issue around the neurodevelopmental pathway, I think, is not exactly the same as this. So CAMS will no longer accept, as I understand it, referrals around the neurodevelopmental, but NHS and partners are working to identify the appropriate pathway so that children who are suspected or may have ADHD or autism will still receive care and support. I think your question was around the impact it's having on families now, and we know that families are experiencing that as a real challenge because it's not clear. I can't explain it to you here today what that pathway is, so if I can't, then how do families understand that? What I can say is that I am aware work is taking place. As a partner in the local authority social work department, we are connected into some of that work, and that will continue. It will not. This plan, though, will not take full responsibility for fixing that. I need to be clear that the improvement we're looking at is for the needs of all children in Angus, how they get the best mental health and wellbeing support through our third sector colleagues, through counselling in school, through social work services. And I guess it's a recognition that there's very good services in Angus, but just if we connect them a wee bit better, then there'll be further improvements. So I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you. Have we got any further questions? Okay, move on to comments. Councillor Devine.
Thanks, Convener. This is altogether a superb inspection report for teams who work under very difficult and often harrowing circumstances and with an increase in demand due to more child neglect and abuse, much of it related to the increased poverty levels. It's heartening that the inspectors picked up on the exceptional collaboration, which you mentioned earlier, Kirsty, among staff and their willingness to constantly learn and improve their practice. But more than anything, they've been impressed by the leadership at all levels who inspire and support their teams in this work. It was great to see that several Angus Council initiatives were highlighted, like PRAM, Work with Dads, Glen Clova, and several others, which are in essence very early intervention and preventative. And it's not always easy to take these initiatives when funding is at a premium, but we have done this in Angus, and I think it's showing benefits. Prepare, which has been mentioned a few times, was also identified as being successful in empowering children and their parents, young people and their parents' carers, to fully participate in the, I suppose, difficult child protection planning meetings. So it was really nice to see that parents felt that they'd also been respected by staff. Our third sector involvement in many areas was commended, especially the whole family wellbeing programme, showing that the collaboration, which has been built up over several years in Angus, because Angus has been a place where people have collaborated quite well, but it's really coming much more together, I think, and between sectors, between organisations, and which is truly bearing fruit. the setting up of PPASC recently, our work on the promise and the trauma-informed training for staff were also mentioned and commended. And although we would rather these problems didn't exist, they do. And I think we can be very proud of our staff who form those close relationships with children and families at a most vulnerable time in their lives. I'm sure I speak for all the committee when I say a huge thank you to all of you and to all of your teams. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Has anyone else got a comment that they wish to make? Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Convener. I would just echo the sentiment of Councillor Devine there. Social work is not an easy job, it's not an easy thing to do, and it's perhaps not the most glamorous subject to discuss in a committee, but it deserves all of the respect and thanks from us as elected members and as a committee to those of you that put in that hard graft and that tackle the tough subjects and do the best for children throughout Angus as a whole. So thank you to Kirsty and Rebecca and the rest of all of the team and their newly qualified social workers. You have our unequivocal support and our thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Speed.
Yeah, of course, recognition and thanks for all the staff within social work that do a tremendous job, but I think also recognition and kind of just an acknowledgement to the children and young people and families who, you know, do need our support and often are caught up in kind of systems that are struggling. And I think we need to recognise that it can often be a really difficult journey, and it's not always easy for anybody involved. So yeah, just acknowledgement and I guess appreciation to our children and families within Angus. Thanks.
Thank you. I think that was the final comment and completely agree with all of the comments that have been made. I also wanted to just raise a couple of things. One of the things that I looked at within the inspection work, is particularly, it's not an easy process, the inspection itself. It's an incredibly thorough one, it's challenging and it's wide-ranging. You can see the details of that in the report, and what's coming out is that we've got a confident and well-trained workforce who are working effectively together, and it takes real commitment from our social workers, education and housing staff to prioritise and participate in ongoing learning. The reference to learning culture and openness that exists is really, really important. No one gets everything right all the time, but the report reflects a real willingness at all levels to hear, learn and improve, and that there's effective governance and oversight in place. And as well, members of this committee were well cited on issues affecting children. So this level of scrutiny that has been undertaken and to conclude that with very good services in Angus is incredibly reassuring, and we should give real thanks to all of the staff involved and the families and children who are all part of this process. So thank you all very, very much. Finally, what we need to do is agree the recommendations.
Sorry, apologies, Convener. It's just to note the amendment that Kirsty provided. So I think, Kirsty, at 3.13, it would be acknowledges the intention for a multi-agency improvement action plan being developed and submitted to the Care Inspector within 6 weeks. It's not just the amendment on the recommendation.
Okay, so do we agree the recommendations, including the amendment? Is that what we need to take forward? So agreed. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Convener. Well done.
Can we stop the live stream, please?